and welcome to the Belfry. This is the PGA National Golf Course, the 14th hole. My name is Chris Ryan and we're talking in this video about the driver, and we're going to talk about the basics. So for those golfers out there who are quite new to the game, we're just going to talk about the driver, how it's different to the other golf clubs in the bag, and how we have to use it slightly differently to get the most out of it. Just before we get started, in the corner of the screen you should have the details for my social media accounts. So if you don't already, then please go ahead and follow me on those. So this is the 14th hole on the PGA course. Slight dogleg from left to right, and certainly off the blue tees today, getting up towards 440 yards, so certainly a tee shot where I need to hit the driver. So for many of the golfers out there who are newer to the game, having a good understanding of how the driver is different to the rest of the golf clubs in the bag and how we have to use it differently is a great way to start and improve how well you hit this golf club. So let's talk about some of the differences. Well, the first thing would be it's the longest club in your golf bag. So the length of it is going to be in the region of 45 inches long, and as I say, it's longer than any other club in the bag. We also have lower loft than any other club in the bag except the putter. So the loft that's built into this golf club is going to vary depending on the driver you've got, but we're going to be ranging from probably about 8.5 degrees up towards the top end in around about 13.5 degrees. And that is much lower than we have with the other clubs in the bag. Now, those two things don't necessarily change what you do. They maybe mean that you have to stand a little bit further away from the golf ball, and they maybe mean that it's a little bit more difficult to control, but they don't on their own necessarily change lots. The big thing with this golf club, and this is the first real difference, is the centre of the golf club is pretty high up, or it's pretty far away from the bottom of the golf club. So you can see how with my driver here, the centre of the golf club is around about here. Now what that ultimately means is it means it's almost impossible for me to hit this golf club when the ball is resting on the ground. When the ball is on the ground, the best I can do is hit a golf shot which comes very, very low at the golf club, and I might get a ball which goes pretty straight, but it's not going to give me the best height, it's not going to give me the best distance, and it's not really using the club to its potential. So the sweet spot on the golf club, or the centre of the golf club if you like, is much, much higher. That is why you will see 99.9% of the times when a golfer hits a driver, they are using a T-peg as I've done here. So the T-peg allows me to raise that ball off the ground, and it enables me to offer the centre of the golf club to the golf ball without making contact with the ground. This now starts to bring us into the biggest difference between the driver and the rest of the clubs in the bag. The biggest difference between the driver and the rest of the clubs in the bag is that we are able to tee the ball up. Now with all your other clubs you can stand on the first tee and use whatever club you want and place it on a tee. But the driver can only be hit off a tee. Once we place the ball on a tee peg and we raise it away from the ground, suddenly we have to change exactly what we do to get the best out of this golf club. So the first question is going to be, well, how high do I need to tee the golf ball? Well, there are no set rules, but we would generally see, as a guide, half the ball above the club as a pretty good starting point. What that's going to mean is it's going to mean that when I have the centre of the driver against the middle of the ball, I have a clearance below it of about an inch or two. And what that really means is it enables me to hit this golf ball off that tee without really risking hitting the ground. If I tee the ball too low, my golf club has to be too close to the ground to hit the middle, and I run the risk of hitting the ground too much. And if I tee the ball too high, it means I have to make too many adjustments in my swing to get to the centre of that golf ball. So about half the ball above the club head would be a really good guide for that driver. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is how the golf club is delivered to the golf ball. When we have the ball on a tee peg, and we've said with the driver that we're pretty much going to tee this golf club up all the time, when that ball is teed up, we suddenly get another option relative to when the ball is on the ground. We have the option to hit the golf ball as the club is moving away from the ground. This is what we call an upward hit, an ascending blow, an angle of attack which is positive. The club is moving away from the ground. Now we're not going to go into it in too much detail in this video, but if we can do that, we are able to hit that golf ball a little bit further without necessarily trying to hit it further. So making a golf swing when the golf club hits the ball on the upswing, so hitting up on the driver as we call it, is very, very advantageous in terms of driving the ball much, much further. A lot of the things that we therefore do in our setup are geared around helping that happen or making that happen a little bit more. So the first thing we're going to talk about now in our setup is where that ball is positioned in your stance. I would like the golf ball to be positioned towards the inside of the lead heel. It doesn't have to be specific. I don't want you to get too bogged down with specifics here, but we need that ball forward in the stance. So somewhere opposite that front heel is a very, very good guide. That's going to help you do some of the things that we've spoken about already in this video. The second thing I would like you to do with your setup, and this is more relative to your irons, is take a slightly wider stance. So I'm giving myself a little bit more of a stable base. Now, there's a few reasons we want to do that. The first thing would be the golf club is a little bit longer. So having the feet a little bit wider can help you with a little bit of balance. This golf club is generally going to be traveling much quicker around your body, and at any point the golf club is further away from you due to the length of the golf club. So having a slightly wider base is certainly going to help you create a little bit more stability and have a slightly better dynamic balance through the golf swing. Now, there is another reason why we'd like to widen the stance, and we're going to talk about that now. I would like your sternum, so that's the buttons, the zip, or whatever it may be on your top, to be significantly back behind the golf ball. We do that in two ways. If I take my setup with the ball in the middle of my stance, you'll notice that the buttons on my top, or the zip if in this case, is in line with the golf ball. So how do I get the buttons behind the golf ball? Well, the first thing I do is I move the ball forward, as we said. By moving the ball forward, that creates slightly offset between where the ball is and where the middle of me is. The second thing I do is make my stance wider, because the wider I have my stance, this is obviously too wide, but you can see how that puts the zip, again, a lot more behind the golf ball. So widening the stance does two things. It puts the middle of you more behind the ball, and it gives you a little bit more stability. Now, why do we want the middle of you behind the ball? Very, very simply, any golf swing you ever make, the golf club is going to go up, down, and then back up again. If we can hit that ball later in the swing, so when that ball is more forward of you, we're going to hit the ball later, and that's the more upward hit that we were talking about a moment ago. So those two setup changes, having the ball forward and having the stance wider, is going to help you get behind the golf ball. That, coupled with the fact that the ball is teed up, is going to allow you to make this upward hit, and that's going to enable you to generate some more distance. That's going to allow you to create some of the impact conditions that we would like, that we were speaking about a minute ago. So really important that we play the ball forward. Really important that we take a slightly wider stance, and absolutely nothing wrong with the driver in even just tipping the upper body a little bit away from the target. We would like to see a little bit of tilt, a little bit of bend in the upper body with the driver. Now, for many golfers, when they do this, it feels very, very bizarre. They feel a lot more behind the golf ball than what they normally would be. And this is something you're just going to have to get used to, because this is exactly how we want to set up with the driver. However, it is different to the other clubs in your bag. So, we're just going to go through a couple more things here. Once I take my starting position, there is often a good chance that the hands are going to be back behind the club head. They're going to be more in the middle of your body. We'd like the hands to be in a position where the golf club is pretty vertical. You can see here that as I move my hands from back to forwards, it changes the angle of the golf club. We would like the golf club to be a little bit more closer to vertical. Now, the reason that's a little bit difficult for a lot of golfers is because you're not looking straight down the golf club. As we've set that head back behind the golf ball, it's sometimes a little bit of an optical illusion that I have to look at a slightly different angle towards that golf club. It's a lot more difficult for me to establish whether that golf club is vertical or whether it's leaning back. So a lot of golfers will have the hands leaning back. When the hands lean back, we start to create some different angles in the face of the dress, and that can really affect where that golf ball goes. So really good to ensure, or key to ensure, that the hands and certainly the grip end of the club is inside the lead thigh. That's going to help you have that golf club nice and vertical, yet the head and the body still back behind the golf ball. So, some basics with the driver. We have to understand how this golf club is different to the other golf clubs in the bag. The sweet spot is much higher. When we tee it up, we are allowed to hit the ball on the upswing. And those things really change exactly how we set ourselves up with the driver. So before we even think about how we can swing the golf club, I think it's really key that we start to have a better understanding about how this golf club performs best and what we can do at our setup to help that happen a lot more regularly. Hopefully that is helpful to you. Some driver basics going to help you understand a little bit more about what you need to do with that golf club. If we can hit this golf club correctly and well, it's certainly going to make the game a lot easier if you can play your second shots from the fairway. So I hope that is helpful. All the usual stuff is down below, the like button, the comments box, and the link in the description to subscribe to my channel. It will mean that you get first access to all the videos, and they're hopefully going to help you play some better golf. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully we'll see you back here again soon.